Land bankers, they're quietly buying up large tracts of rural land on the fringes of Auckland. We don't like land bankers, do we? But what about the first home buyers? Well, glad you asked, because there's no doubt that housing affordability and the still elevated, albeit falling, mortgage rates remain key challenges for first home buyers. Even though first home grants are now off the table, this group just continues to find a way into the market. The latest CoreLogic buyer classification data shows first home buyers accounted for just short of 27% of property purchases in July, up a touch, just a smidge. 26% in the second quarter of the year. And what do first home buyers settle for? An apartment, a doer? Surely nothing too flash. Which brings me to call in on a story I saw from New Zealand's top architects, who is saying they'd like to see some big changes in how the country designs and builds houses. They're advocating more density, but this is what I was like scratching my head at, more drama and more surprise. What the heck is surprise? Like a Kinder surprise? I have no idea what's inside that house. To talk through these and some other property issues to hand is our good friend Ashley Church, property commentator. Ashley, good afternoon.
What an eclectic opening that was.
Isn't it? I know. I just, it's Monday, Ashley. I just threw it. It's potpourri. That's what it is.
It was Shakespearean in its breadth and
in its breadth and depth. Come on. Look, we're going to get to this, but when I saw that about architects and say they want more drama, more surprise, I was like, really? But look, firstly, land bankers, developers, and wealthy investors actually looking to secure land with development potential while prices are soft. No surprises?
Well, no, and it's interesting because, and shame on you, Leah, because I mean, like, expect from the left this angst and wringing of hands when it comes to these people. But I expect better from you, because somebody has to bank land prior to development taking place, and it's always happened, and it always will happen, and these guys are obviously, or woman or whoever, are obviously recognising that the market's turning and are starting to prepare for the development of stock. And it's interesting because Bishop, the Minister of Housing, came out a little while back. In fact, he's following through on one of his election campaign promises, saying that he's going to require councils to have a 30-year pipeline.
That's right.
So this is all part of that process. So absolutely nothing wrong with this. It's all part of that process of developing more homes, and I don't have any issue with it, and I'm not surprised, to be honest.
I'm just jealous, Ashley. That's why I'm just jealous. I can't go out and
that's okay. Say that to start with.
Yeah, I'm not condemning. I'm jealous. But can I ask you though? There are substantial risks though, aren't they, Ash? It's not like just going to buy a house because there's future zoning, there's availability of infrastructure. There is quite a big risk involved.
There's a lot of risk involved, and also it's not absolutely guaranteed that land's going to be subdividable. So
that's right.
In some cases it is, obviously. In some cases it'll be known that it's subdividable. But there'll be other areas, particularly on the fringes of the city, where councils may not necessarily accept that that's land that they want to develop for housing purposes. So there's costs of holding. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, I'm not bleeding for these guys because they do quite well out of it if they plan it right. But there's a lot involved in this process, and I come back to my point before. Somebody has to do it. So whether it's these people or somebody else, somebody has to do this, because that's where your pipeline of housing development comes from.
And staying with buying up, it's great news to see that in the latest CoreLogic buyers data, first home buyers have accounted for a little bit of a bump, 27% in property purchases. What do you think's the main driver behind this?
Well, the first comment I'd make is, and you're quite right in your point, it is a little bit of a bump. One of the things, and again, it's this angst and hands-wringing that we get from so-called advocates for housing, that this idea that first-home buyers are closed out of the market. In fact, first-home buyers have always been, certainly for a very long period of time, have always been the biggest group of buyers in the market. I think since 2013, and to be fair, I haven't seen the absolute latest figures, but since 2013, most quarters, they are the biggest buyer group. So this is great. It's a reflection of the fact that first home buyers are recognising that it's time to get back in. There's a lot of these people who I suspect probably waited because they thought that prices were continuing to flatten, and so they're now recognising that that's no longer going to happen. House prices, albeit slowly, are starting to go up again, and they're recognising that they need to get in. So again, it's all part of that natural cycle of the market, and you know, it's great that they're recognising that and getting in.
Great news. Our fabulous Kelly. They've signed on the dotted line. It's her first house.
Fantastic.
She's moving in this weekend. I've scared her partner, saying the housewarming present from me will be 2 puppies that I will send to their house.
I'm so living for this. I'm so living for it.
Kelly wants dogs, and they've got a backyard now, ain't it, Kelly? So
that's right, big one.
Yeah, it's like a real family.
And Dave, her lovely partner's up a little worried that Leah's going to send 2 Great Danes there. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But no, that's great news for Kelly, you know, and it's her first house, and it's good to see that people are, you know, getting on the property ladder. I want to talk about this architect story, and some of these architects say they want to see some big changes, including more density, all right, more drama, more surprises, because that's what I look for in housing, drama and surprises.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, which I agree with, is density housing has to be done well if it's to succeed.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we're a funny old country because we're a young country in respect of our housing stock, and in fact, in respect of any building. And so, you know, we sort of compare ourselves to sort of the great buildings of Europe, and you know, people living in houses that 300 or 400 years old, and you know, ours are sort of knocked over after 30 or 40 in a lot of cases. So this idea that you know, so I understand where they're coming from. I understand the point they're trying to make. It's this whole idea of having homes of character and making a statement. And I'm sort of betwixt and between. I read this article. I'm sort of betwixt and between, because on the one hand, I get it. I get what they're trying to say. They're saying, you know, we need to have a little bit more pizzazz, and there needs to be something to be proud of. It did sound a bit pretentious, though. It did sound a little bit dorky. And so, and so it was trying to find a middle position between those two things. I think perhaps if they had used slightly different language, or not made the statement right at the end of the article that as architects that they shouldn't necessarily be required to meet consent standards with council, that might have made their case a little bit more. Yeah. I know.
For the listeners, that was one of the last line was they should be exempt from having to apply for resource or building consent because they're experienced architects.
Yeah, but I do take the point. One of the things that is interesting about this, though, is that one man's beauty is another man's ugly, and so, you know, when we look at houses now and we say those are ugly, they're not going to last the test of time. It's entirely possible in 34 years' time, people will look at them and say, aren't they gorgeous? They come from a particular era. I look here in Napier, where I live. And the suburb of Mariwa is not almost entirely, but a lot of the houses there are Art Deco from the 1930s after the 1931 earthquake.
I love
and I don't
Deco.
particularly like. Yeah, I don't particularly like the style.
Oh.
No, but I understand completely why people do. It's a time capsule, and they're sought after. And yet there were periods through the history of Napier after the 1930s where people plastered over those Art Deco features and tried to cover them up because they regarded them as ugly. So times and tastes and styles do change, and you know, nothing's static. And as I say, what we think is ugly now may well be considered beautiful in 20 or 30 years' time.